extend the discussion to on the U.S. dollar maintaining its reserve currency status given its shrinking size from an economic perspective in the world? Because I think that's an extension of the point you're making as well, or
Yeah,
could be.
yeah. So one thing we've seen is that I mentioned before that for most of the past 50 years, all global energy is priced in dollars, and that worked for a while because when that system started in the 70s, the United States was like 35% of global GDP, and we were the largest importer of energy. But over time, now depending on how you measure it, we're between like 15 and 22% of global GDP, and China's a bigger importer of energy than we are. And so it's really hard to run a global system of all oil being priced in dollars if the United States is a shrinking share of the global pie, because other countries are growing faster than us. We're only like say we're like 20% of global GDP. We're like 4 or 5% of the population. So that's actually still pretty good. It's just it's not big enough to kind of kind of account for the entire global oil market. And so we're starting to see in addition, we've also used those sanctions pretty aggressively at some countries, and they say, okay, just because we're tired of this kind of boom bust dollar dynamic, and we don't want to be able to be sanctioned. You see an increasing number of countries go around the dollar system and say, okay, we want to pay in euros, or we want to sell oil in euros. And so we've seen Russia, for example. Um, Russia, for example, has been aggressively de-dollarizing and selling oil in euros. So we've seen trade between China and Russia become more diversified in terms of it used to be almost entirely dollar based, and now it's the euro share is bigger than the dollar. They're also using a little bit of their local currencies. We're also seeing trade between Russia and Europe is increasingly shifting towards the euro. We've even seen trade between Russia and India has shifted more towards even towards the Russian ruble in that particular arrangement, but overall becoming more diversified. And so overall, the way I see this playing out is that the United States is really just no longer big enough to be the only currency used for global energy pricing. And so we're now kind of shifting towards a more multi-currency energy pricing regime where you'll have the dollar able to buy oil, you have the euro able to buy oil. We've also seen, the futures in Shanghai, yuan based oil. That's been pretty high volumes. So probably at least those three currencies over time, they'll probably have increasing ability to buy commodities and oil. And so in that sense, the dollar will change from being the global reserve currency to one of the global reserve currencies, or we'll shift towards a kind of a status of having these regional reserve currencies rather than just one to kind of rule them all.